Welcome to part 3. Are you interested in how to recover your brain from porn use much faster than normal and how to increase the strength of all those positive benefits? Well, if so, going forward we are going to talk about one different tool each time that will help you do so. And today we are going to take a look at something almost no one else is talking about in relation to porn addiction recovery. And that is winning a competition, getting a promotion, or in some way leveling up in status in a social setting. Now, before you freak out here, just collecting small wins in general will also help, and I'll show you how in just a moment. But before I do, check this out. There was a serious study where they took a look at a bunch of monkeys who all had the same amount of dopamine D2 receptors in their brain, or the same dopamine receptor density. Then they threw all of those monkeys together in a cage, and after some, monkey business had started going on for some time in the cage in form of screaming, scratching, biting and fighting, a hierarchy was formed. The dominant monkeys emerged and the more submissive males sort of settled themselves down. Now here's the deal. After some time had passed, they once again checked the dopamine receptor density in the animal's brain. And what do you know? The more dominant males had suddenly much more dopamine receptors in the brain. And the key thing to remember here is that they all had the same receptor density before they was thrown into that cage. This tells us that winning and leveling up in status both increase dopamine in the moment, but even more importantly, that it actually promotes the growth of new dopamine D2 receptors in the brain. In other words, the monkeys who had the guts to try to go for it and then were lucky enough to win, they were being rewarded by Mother Nature and got a better functioning dopamine system on top of that. Now this makes perfect sense if you think about evolution. Historically, winning and leveling up in status was important to increase your chances of being able to pass your genes to the next generation. And if you didn't know, there are also studies on humans showing that increased social status, social support, and social confidence, well, they are all linked to higher levels of dopamine receptors. So please understand that we are now talking about a double positive here, because it works the other way around too. In other words, people who already have more dopamine receptors tend to have more energy, drive, and social confidence. And then those traits will, of course, further help them to go after things in life, and thus help them to keep winning and to keep leveling up, getting even more receptors as a reward, creating sort of a powerful positive feedback loop. And this could also explain why so many guys with a porn addiction also have social anxiety, because their receptors are all messed up. And then also explain why people who start doing NoFap and tear themselves away from the screen start to see more social confidence and a big reduction in their social anxiety. It's because by giving up the porn, the receptors start to grow back. Now, before you say, but getting a promotion or leveling up socially takes so much work and effort, I don't think I can do that. Well, let me challenge you for a moment. Why would you not? When you quit using porn, you're not just gaining freedom, you are also unlocking a massive reserve of energy, drive, and most importantly, time. You get more time and you have to replace the porn with something. So why not use that time to become the best version of yourself? I mean, it's not like you have anything better to do, because you certainly shouldn't go back to porn, right? Now, big goals may feel daunting, but here's the deal. You do not have to get a promotion and significantly level up for this to work. No, this also works if you start collecting many smaller wins. Like, for example, every evening you write down a few daily tasks that you are going to do the following day. Small tasks that will bring you just a bit closer to your bigger goals in life, whatever they may be. And then then each time you complete such a task, no matter how small it is, well, you get to tick that box, and every time you tick the box, you are actually visually also collecting a small win. That's how your brain perceives it. Now, just getting a few wins won't do that much for the upregulation of your dopamine receptors, but repeated wins over time will for sure do so. And this is just one reason why I often recommend setting smaller goals to yourself in the beginning, especially if you're down in a slump. Because if you set too big goals and you also make the daily task list very hard, well, as soon as you start to slip with those, you're no longer collecting those wins. And so then you're first not getting the results, and second, it does no good for your dopamine receptors and your dopamine system. Now, of course you can and should make your goals big, bright and exciting, but you need to make sure you set smaller milestones leading up to those bigger goals, and that you physically tick off those on a paper when you reach one of those smaller milestones. So start by setting incredibly small tasks and then start collecting many of those small wins. That right there is today's recovery tool. And you know what? This is more powerful than you think. So start doing this today. And also, by all means, why not see if you can on top of that also join some group or two. Do, for example, arm wrestling, swimming, tennis, playing a musical instrument, martial arts, riding, disc golf. There are hundreds of different clubs out there with all kinds of different activities. And then start practicing that skill more and more and more. Hone it in until soon maybe you rise to become the best one in your group on that particular thing. And then now you also have one of those big wins where you level up in social status. You know, those wins that significantly increases your receptor density in your brain. Just like with the monkey experiment I showed you earlier. Now, I am 100% confident that this can only help your recovery time. And again, what better thing do you have to do than try to become the best version of yourself? This one is obviously something that can both help you grow as a person, achieve cool things, but then also on top of that, get rewarded with a better functioning dopamine system. This is so cool. Leveling up is such an amazing tool, actually. It is, in fact, self-improvement in its highest form. Now, in part 4, we are going to talk about a completely different tool. So if you have a history of porn use and or are doing NoFap, make sure to subscribe right now for that, because you do not want to miss that. And speaking of recovery time, if you want to know how long recovery will take on average for someone with your history and circumstances, well, you can learn how to figure that one out by clicking on the video you see to the left right here, and click on the video to the right here to continue to part 4 in this series about how to recover and speed things up. And if you can't see any video on the screen right now, it just means I'm still working on it and it'll be out shortly.